They need to bring snacks when they come. We need to have like platters to try.
Yeah, and when you sit there and talk about food for an hour.
And we had everything, Italian, tropical.
Cookies.
Cookies.
All right, we are live on YouTube.
Great. Good evening. Welcome to the March 24th, 2021 Henrietta Town Board meeting. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Here.
Councilmember Stafford.
Here.
Councilmember Safranek,
Here.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Here.
Supervisor Schultz.
Here. We'll begin tonight with a silent prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
That's me.
Mr. Supervisor, I make a motion to approve the March 10th, 2021 minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Residents who are participating virtually and wish to speak during tonight's meeting will be asked to do so through Zoom by one of two means. If you're using Zoom on your computer or with an app, select the raise hand control, or if you are called into Zoom, press *9. When it is your turn to speak, the meeting host will enable you to talk. If you are watching this meeting on YouTube and wish to respond, please visit henrietta.org/wishyouwerehere for detailed instructions on how to connect on Zoom. For the deaf or hard of hearing, please use the Q&A feature in Zoom. For anyone else, please reserve the Q&A feature for the deaf and hard of hearing only. First up, we have a public hearing to consider a proposed local law to revise the permitted and prohibited uses in industrial districts. In the proposed law, we have there were a couple of uses that we noted were missing. Specifically, we allow greenhouses and nurseries to be located in industrial districts, but we don't allow the landscape companies that use those facilities. So that was kind of a oversight. They could get approval by special use permit, but it just makes sense that it's a permitted use. In addition, we wanted to make a clarification that there was some, because of all the almost spaghetti code, to use a programming term, that the commercial zone references the industrial zones and the industrial zones reference the commercial zones. There was some potential loophole for car dealerships to be located in industrial zones outside of what I usually refer to as dealership row on West Henrietta Road. We are making a clarification that that is not allowed. What do you remember what the third one was, Don? Okay.
One thing I mentioned was the rental car.
Well, that's with respect to this, but I'm talking about in the local law, there was I'll look into it. But anyways, do people have any comments? I'll ask while I'm looking that up. Any questions, comments? So one of the issues with the rental cars, Mike, is that there are currently, I think it was 9 rental car locations already located in industrial zones.
Well, two of them are hardware stores that are.
They do rent trucks.
Right, that rent trucks, but they're not. That's not their main business. The other ones are are more leasing companies, long-term lease, except for the U-Haul, as far as I can see. And that one's been there for as long as I can remember.
Mhm.
So I would propose we add rental car companies there too, going forward.
How do others feel?
I didn't hear the.
So Mike is suggesting that he wants to see rental cars added to the prohibited list for industrial zones, that you can't have rental car companies in industrial zones. Right now, they're not in allowed use. They are permitted with a special use permit. Is that correct, Don? Because because they are not expressly permitted, they fall into the catch-all as a commercial use. They would require a special use permit today.
As we talked about the last one that got issued, and I think that's in what used to be Tops Plaza, it's Frontier Plaza, isn't it?
Yep.
Our concerns were the selling of vehicles somewhere obviously other than West Henrietta Road, and having a cross conglomerate of things like that going on. I kind of agree with Mike that I would like to see it stay in the West Henrietta Road area and not have it come down Jefferson Road like it, we do have a few down there, and I do understand that our Home Depots and our Lowe's have those services, but that's not their main thrust of business. I like to see it not so busy on Jefferson Road. It's busy enough with what's going on there and the new changes in the road.
Any comments from the public? Any comments online? Just to be clear, if we make this change, we would have to advertise, re-advertise, hold a new public hearing. Because basically we've changed the local law. And obviously, basically what will happen is when we get to that resolution, we'll basically put the resolution on the table to approve as is, and if not, again, you can make a motion to modify. Again, if we modify, then basically we can't approve it modified. We would modify the local law, which would immediately then trigger the fact that it has to be re-advertised and hold a new public hearing and start again.
Stephen,
Sorry, I do have some folks with their hands raised when you're ready.
Well, go ahead, Don, you were going to say something?
yeah, I just want to say you did assess that inventory of how many rental car shops were in industrial zones, right?
Correct.
And what was that result?
So there's one traditional rental car company. That's the one we approved this past year. There were a number of truck rentals. There were some truck leasing, and then there were two.
Yeah, I see it on the board now.
Right. The two hardware stores that have truck rentals,
So if we adopted this change, then all these would become,
non-conforming.
yeah.
Well, the Home Depot and Lowe's, you don't go there to rent the vehicle. You go there, when you purchase something, you rent, you have a big product, you rent the vehicle to move it.
You would have to craft the law or the rule specifically to allow them, because they basically would not be able to do truck rental at their locations if that is a disallowed use. Doesn't matter that it's not their primary use. Correct, Don?
Well, then did they come in for a special use permit to rent it?
It doesn't matter. The instant you basically say it's not an allowed use, they are pre-existing non-conforming, but that means they can never change that use.
When they started renting vehicles, shouldn't they have come in for a special use permit if they started renting vehicles there?
Depends.
Because they were a retail location, not a car rental place.
Yeah, theoretically, it depends on when that requirement came into play.
Right.
So if,
And the one thing I will note is that Lowe's, I believe, is in the PCD, which is often referred to as the Wild West of retail.
Right. I'm referring,
Right.
I'm thinking of Home Depot.
Yeah, so
being on Jefferson
Lowe's
Road.
might not be accurate being on there, because now that I think about it, I think that is in the PCD, not industrial.
If you change this, the businesses that are there currently can continue the way that they are, but say, for instance, budget car rental, let's say it was a franchise and it sells to somebody else, then does that new franchise have to come in for approval?
If
Or
they're,
if they sell to another name, do they have to come in for,
Don, I'll let you take that one.
if it changes, you're saying?
So if budget sells to Avis, for instance,
Yeah.
thank you, perfect example.
Yeah, my suggestion in that instance would be just to issue these special permits, not specific to a particular tenant or landowner, but specific to a particular use. This is kind of what we're looking at in the whole restaurant situation.
yeah, we're talking about improving that portion.
Yeah.
So you're saying that that particular, so for instance, when I was on zoning board and we would approve something for zoning, we would say, you need to understand the next tenant has the same rights as the
Correct.
tenant that we just approved.
Right.
So you're saying that basically if this was sold, as long as it was a similar thing, that they're going to still be able to do the similar thing, you're not going to take it away from
Right,
them?
so a couple of things happen, because it's non-conforming, they would not be able to expand.
Okay,
If they ever changed from, so for one day, if they were no longer renting cars, right, they decided they sold it to Joe's Pizzeria, and a week later, Joe's Pizzeria closed down and Avis wanted to open up, they would not be able to.
okay.
Because the instant you stop or even go a year not operating, your pre-existing non-conforming exemption goes away and you now have to be fully compliant. So my suggestion would be this. I'm wondering if instead, might I suggest an alternative? What if we started to take a look at adding something, additional special use permit requirements for a car rental facility? Because we can then get, right, so then in terms of, it doesn't make it an illegal use for the hardware store, for instance. And what would basically happen is, as anybody else came in to do something or expanded an existing, they would have to meet those additional requirements. So we would just leave it as is right now, which basically says it has to come in as a special use permit. But what we would do is, in the meantime, we would work on what changes do we need to put in there, or, what additional things do we want to put in there? Because, one of the concerns some people have with a special use permit is, under the normal standards, how able are you to say no, right? Is you can get into additional things that should be considered, and I'll use an example, right? Just of the two types of variances, both area variance and a use variance. I look at a bunch of standards. The standards for a use variance is much, much, much more difficult than the standard for an area variance. So again, we could create something with a higher standard that would have to be met for a car rental special use permit, but still it would be allowed under a special use permit.
Yeah, and I would encourage, when you go through that exercise, encourage the town to identify up front, what are the issues with this particular use that we're trying to control or trying to get at? Why is this use something we need to treat distinctly? And then you form your criteria based on those kinds of questions so that you can get at those issues directly.
Yeah, the town wanted to keep the dealers off of, the town wanted to keep the dealers on West Henrietta Road.
Right.
I just don't want to see a bunch of rental places popping up all up and down Jefferson Road, let's say.
Right.
And we went through big discussions on this 2.5 years ago, I think it was, when we approved the budget Avis place.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, the thing might be, as you take a look at, so to Don's point, is the issue the number of vehicles in the lot, right? We also made it clear they can't sell there because then it falls into the dealership category, right, for automobile sales, which is disallowed.
Right.
If we're basically looking at, does it go into the, if it's the number of vehicles, because let's face it, dealers have a lot of vehicles, right? But as you look at some of the car rental locations, some do have massive storage, like the ones near the airport. Some do not. Some keep the inventory elsewhere, and it's largely a pick up and drop off location, right? So if the issue is the large lots of vehicles, to Don's point, that's what we need to identify. What is it that bothers us about the car rentals, so that we can basically say from a standard standpoint, do we basically allow it for car rentals that have less than 20 cars on lot, right? That could
Right.
be something we could put in, type of thing. And it could still require a special use permit. It could have a maximum on there. There's a bunch of different things we could do. I do think that's going to take some time. And I would love it if the individuals who feel strongly about this would take the lead on that and start looking at, what do we want to see on this?
Yeah, I do agree that the special permit can be used to kind of limit some of the things like we did with the Davis, and the only reason they came out because Marketplace was closed.
Right. Right. Their previous location
Yeah,
closed down.
I mean, they couldn't be there any longer. So I agree with that we should look at a way of maybe honing in on what issues we have as a board, as well as our residents have with these anywhere else other than West Henrietta Road.
So if any residents are watching and have ideas on why you wouldn't like to see car rentals, or more specifically, what aspect of car rental facilities would you not like to see other than on Dealership Row, let us know so we can fold that into as well. I'll post something including on Henrietta Highlights so we can get feedback there as well. But, like I said, my thought is let's not try to tackle that now, because we're going to have an issue. I'd rather get the other three things in now, and we can do that as an additional local law. From a money saving standpoint, we can hold off on the E-code update. If it's not too far in the future, we can do the two E-code updates at the same time. Doesn't matter that it's a separate local law.
I'm agreeable to that.
Does it work for you, Mike?
Yeah, as long as we put something in there that we're gonna visit that, and,
It wouldn't be in the local law. We would just commit
Right.
to it now.
we had a lot of, we put a lot of restrictions on those people over at Budget.
Correct.
With parking.
And we ought to
Yeah.
revisit that whole
That's-
discussion. Yeah, I would start right there, because we went
Right.
into a lot of the concerns. I do remember the big issue was how much are they going to take away from the available parking for the other tenants
Right.
in the plaza?
Right, and they park basically behind the building.
Right. Right, so that gets into some of the stuff that you could take as those conditions. You could say, for instance, if you are your own parcel, if you have storage of the vehicles behind the building, so it's not in front of the site, you could put those kinds of, these are things we want to look at when evaluating the special use permit.
Right.
Those are additional criteria, and it then becomes very easy for you to say, this one where you're in the middle of a plaza, competing with other spaces, and all the cars are right out front, we have an issue with that.
Right.
So, okay. Any other comments? Oh, Becky, you said people with
Yeah, are you ready for
We are.
the virtual comments? First up, I have Kevin.
Kevin?
Kevin Yost, 1474 Middle Road. I agree with limiting car rentals and car dealerships to Western Air Road. However, I feel I have no problem with truck rentals being on toward the portion of Jefferson Road near John Street and Bernard or Townland Road, such as Silver Roll and U-Haul and and Ryder, they're there now, and I'm not sure if you're gonna see trucks on the other end of Jefferson Road across from Frontier Tops Commons if they do rentals or not. Of course, they'd be grandfathered right now anyway.
Okay, anything in particular that bothers you about having them elsewhere in town?
I don't think that other than that, like I say, the truck rentals they're on the portion of Jefferson Road by past Southtown Plaza and Jefferson Plaza toward Park Point. Those 3 truck dealerships there, but as for car rentals, car dealerships, they shall be limited to West Henry Road.
Is there a reason you would like them limited to the car rentals limited to there?
Well, it seems like it just makes sense. Well, maybe there could be some, maybe they could include limited car dealerships or car rentals to the portion of Winton Road between Jefferson Road, Barton Town Line Road, such as right now Valley Cadillac and Valley Hummer are there, and Valley Cadillac's been there for 45 years.
Yeah, they're pre-existing. Okay.
Thanks, Kevin.
Next, Becky.
And then I did have Dorothy had her hand raised. She's since lowered it, but I just want to make sure that she is all set. Well, Dorothy, I still have you muted. Let's try that again.
I'm all set, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody in the audience here? Any further input from the board? So hearing no further input, I close public hearing to consider a proposed local law to revise permitted and prohibited use in industrial districts. Hearing no objection, public hearing closed. Next up, we have a public hearing for Imbergia Brothers Holding FSI Construction Special Use Permit Application number 2020-28 to construct a plus or minus 200,000 square foot light manufacturing facility on a portion of the former Delphi complex, and seek a review. I will note that we will not be acting on this one, and in fact, we've asked the developer to fold back in a number of the public comments that they've received at this town board, as well as through letters to the town board. But because this was advertised, people came out, we want to hear your input. We will make sure they are listening, they'll hear it, but they're not doing a presentation because effectively their presentation's out of date based off of some of the feedback that's coming from the public. So is there anyone who wishes to speak regarding special use permit application number 2020-28 for Delphi project?
I do have a hand raised in our virtual audience, if you're ready.
I am.
It's Kevin again. Here we go, Kevin.
Kevin Yost, 1474 Middle Road. I support this facility on one condition, is that the vibrations of any trucks going in and out will not affect the historic buildings in the West Henry Hamlet. Most especially the old Horizons Financial building, that's a cobblestone former residence that's actually also an underground railroad site. And then to a lesser extent, as you go down to the corner Erie Station Road, the Bixby House and the Westerner Fire Station, Westerner Post Office, that of course is an old schoolhouse.
Great, thank you.
I feel that this will create jobs, just as so many jobs have been lost due to the pandemic.
Right.
Provided the truck vibrations don't affect the historic buildings.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin. Anybody in the audience here? Anybody else online?
Yes, Dorothy's raised her hand to speak about this. There we go. Oh, she's still muted. Hang on.
Hello?
Hello?
All right. We had a question concerning the height of the building. What are we looking at in terms of, you know, how much higher is it?
The building would at a maximum of 40 feet in height.
From the top of that, I know you wanted to keep it pretty much. And where, and how, West Henrietta Road, are they raising it up? Are they keeping it at the same height as West Henrietta Road?
So the whole site slopes down towards the entrance of West Henrietta Road. The building couldn't be at the height of West Henrietta Road. Well, I guess it could. It would have a moat around it, most likely. Basically, we'll have to see what the updated plans with all the elevation information on it. As far as the height, again, it's above, the base height is above West Henrietta Road. The roof from the last plans I saw would still be below the crown of Erie Station Road. So again, Erie Station Road, as you know, has a significant hill on it. As you're down closer to the post office, you would be below the surface of the roof. But as you move up to the crest of the hill, you'd actually be above the building, the top of the building. That's my understanding of it. But again, we've asked them to update
when
the
they
3D model and to
come
go ahead.
back, when they come back for reapproval, are those?
Yes.
Over
So
here.
We are.
Yeah.
until they submit, basically, they will need to resubmit. We asked them for a bunch of additional information. Until that's available, we're not going to schedule the next meeting. If they get it done quickly enough, we would advertise for the next town board meeting is 3 weeks from now. If you want to stay on top of it from the legal notices that go out, go to henrietta.org.
Okay.
Subscribe, and you can sign up to receive
Can I,
legal notices. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask about the stand of trees they're planning on putting along the edge of Erie Station Road. Has that been addressed at all?
One of the things that the developer has already committed to is to not obstruct the view, work to not obstruct the view of downtown for any houses that currently have it. So again, as you're down the hill, below the height of the building, their plan was to put in some, a decent berm and some trees on top of that. As you get near the crest of the hill, there would be a minimal berm, and you're probably looking at more along the lines of bushes than trees, with the intent that someone in a car isn't looking down on the HVAC equipment on the roof of the building, but that the people in the houses across the street would be able to still have their view of downtown. So again, the developer has committed towards that. But again, we want to see
That's understandable.
model that shows that.
Thank you.
Oh, we're doing more now.
Thank you. That was all we had.
Great, thank you.
Dorothy, before you go, I see that you have another person there with you. Could I just get their name for the minutes? Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't catch that.
We are all set. That was all we needed. Thank you.
Sure, I was just trying to get the name of the other person there with you for the minutes.
Christopher Greer.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else online? Someone, go ahead, coming up to the microphone.
Hold on just a minute. Sorry, we were having an issue muting Dorothy again. I accidentally muted the main meeting room. Don, can you hit unmute?
Is that mic on?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I can't force unmuting. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I live at 5612 West Henrietta Road between the Cobblestone House and the Headings House, Terenzi's.
Could you state your name, please, for the
Pete
minutes?
Terenzi.
Thank you.
This berm that they have coming down, the ponds that they have, how close are they going to be to like the property lines, these lakes or ponds?
That's one of the things we want to have them to clarify. Just to be clear, as I understand the ponds, and we want to get them to fully detail this.
Yes.
But so I know in the letter we received from Mr. Congdon, he was talking about the amount of runoff that comes down that hill today.
We got
Obviously the berm, anything east of the berm would no longer go to the back of your properties. It would be channeled to the pond that would be closer to the entrance of the facility.
Okay.
Then you have the berm, and there was an additional smaller pond on the west side of the berm. That, as I understand it, would be just to collect the runoff that comes down the berm, and that there would be essentially an overflow outlet into the lower elevation pond down near the entrance, but I need them to draw that up. That's how it was explained to me, but I want to see it on the plans.
Good.
So the idea is, again, one of the things based off of the feedback from the residents at the public hearing, I requested that not whether it's a pond or some other stormwater facility, I wanted them to keep that water from going near the historic properties and preferably draw enough, any that's currently there that's having issues to draw it away.
Yeah, because the main water line comes down between both our properties, Mark's and ours, and it does follow the line. But the main thing is we were just worried about how close the ponds would be coming. Are they going to be like 100-foot back or 200-foot back?
So let me ask this, what would you prefer? Besides maybe that this whole development didn't exist, but
besides all
if
that,
the development's going in, what would you prefer? How would you like to see that pond?
well, he has a roll of trees there. I don't know if he put in himself because we were having the water problem there. I think he would want it at least a couple 100 feet. I'm talking for him, but I don't know.
Right.
All right. But
My thought is that all existing trees, I would like to see them preserved.
okay.
That was based off of feedback from one of the very first public hearings we had on this.
Okay.
And I assume now that was Mr. Congdon speaking. I assume you feel the same, that you wouldn't want them to endanger any of the trees along the back of your property. I assume that's correct,
No,
right?
yes, they're more on his, but the way the
Right.
thing's going to come down, I think that would be better. Plus, if it is a holding pond where there's water in there all the time, is it going to have some kind of a fountain to keep it moving, or is it springs there? That's the other thing. Mosquitoes.
This goes back to what I want them to specify.
Mhm.
To my understanding, it's what's called a detention pond, not a retention pond. And what that means is it normally sits dry. When the water is sheeting heavily, it's allowed to fill up so that it essentially slows the rate at which water flows downhill. And again, there would be an outlet from that pond into the lower pond. The lower pond, because of its lower elevation, most likely, again, I'd like them to specify this, but my understanding of it is that that lower pond would most likely have water in it, but the upper pond,
Where we are.
where you guys are, would not.
Okay.
But again, I want them to specify what they're looking at, because obviously that plays into effect on the potential impact to your houses.
Okay. Well, okay. If something, if something was to occur after, could you make them do something about it?
If they are not compliant with their approval, yes, we can force them to fix it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I will note that my deputy town supervisor, Craig Eckert, is very good in terms of following up on drainage issues, especially when developers aren't living up to their end of the bargain. Anyone online?
That's all I have online.
Is there anyone else in the meeting room? Anyone from the town board wish to add anything?
Just so I understand, when they get the revised plans, are we going to have another public hearing?
We are.
Thank you.
So I'm not going to be, for lack of a better way to put it, I'm not closing the public hearing. The public hearing will continue, but it's not necessarily on for next meeting. It will depend how fast they have to get the stuff. In addition, depending on the nature of the changes, it may have to go back out to New York State DOT, county planning. So as part of the seeker process, if there is a significant change that occurs based on the plans, based off of this public feedback, that needs to go back out in case they were looking at the plan saying, oh, well, it's not a big deal because it's not this. And then it changes to that, right? So because of those unknowns, I can't say for certain that it's going to be on for the next meeting, but that will be dependent on how fast they can get the additional updated information. And, again, if they're not listening right now live, they were planning on listening to the recording so that they can incorporate any feedback from tonight's hearing as well. So the stuff on the pond, again, I've asked them to clarify it, but in terms of making sure that it's not right up to the back of the property lines, that's something that they can take into effect. The volume of the pond is dictated a lot by how much water's flowing, but they can change the shape. So for instance, they might be able to elongate it so that it's running north-south and not so much east-west, so it can stay away from your property. But that's something that they're going to have to put together and come up with something that we feel satisfies the potential impacts on your property.
I know that I'm the liaison for the Historical Site Committee, and I know that they have some concerns, and I know that one of the big concerns that's been addressed to me by multiple people on the board is the dirt when they build into the building. And so I was trying to do some calculations on the dirt, but I'm assuming that they're going to come back with information as to what they're going to do with the dirt as well.
They basically, again, 2 meetings back, there's been so many I can't remember them all, but at one of the meetings, they committed to keeping essentially the dirt on site. So one of the things that did, when you do that, that's why the base elevation moved up some from where it was previously. And based off of their initial calculations, they basically said to us that they'd be able to put that all in the berm. We want to actually see those calculations. We don't want to have to compute them ourselves. But in their 3D model, when they did the analysis, that's why the base level of the elevation is higher than it was on the original plans, because to do at the low elevation that they were talking on the original plans, they would have had to move a lot of dirt.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out truckloads. I mean, Mike and I the other night were sitting here, and I'm like talking to Siri, what's the average cubic yards of dirt in a commercial dump truck, and then how many cubic yards based on the calculations we had, and it was just
Thousands.
incredible.
maybe even tens of
And so-
Tens of
thousands.
thousands.
Yes.
I think it was 26,000 or
Yeah,
something.
It was a lot.
And so that was one of the concerns that they had is trucking all this dirt out.
Correct.
Is just a lot of rumbling,
No.
you know, as Kevin mentioned, with the rumbling with the historical site buildings. And then I know they were concerned with the height of the berms. And the other concern was as the trees grow, it's going to obstruct the view from the people on Erie Station Road. So just knowing that this is going to be open so that they can come back in and listen and put their different concerns out
And-
is good to know.
And one of the other things they did commit to was putting a historic facade on the building. So they asked me for some examples. I sent them a bunch of the images from the bicentennial book. So there were a lot of historic buildings in there. They looked at a couple of them. Their non-architect liked what is now the Moose Lodge. So with modern, but I will point out, he is not the architect. The architects in the firm probably said, don't comment. But I asked them right now, as you saw in the massing model, it was just a block. I would like them to give us some ideas as to what type of look they're saying. You know, I will point out, there are multiple 40-foot tall buildings right across the street. In fact, when you look straight out from the cobblestone property, there's two of them right in front of you. Right. So the thing is, what Howard Konar, who developed that, did is he built historically consistent facades. He made them look like buildings from the same time period as which the West Hamlet was developed. This developer has committed to doing the same. We want to see, you know, some examples of what he's talking about. You know, one of the ones I'd love to see is if he do one where one of the buildings that is the Monroe Academy, and to put one of the cupola on top. Whereas that would stick up a little, I think that would be absolutely gorgeous. But I don't know if they'd be willing to do that because I'm sure that's an additional cost. But the thing is, you know, they could do cobblestone and board and batten. And now they may not be actual cobblestones. In fact, I can guarantee you they wouldn't be, but there are building materials where they're essentially on, you know, like 4x4 sheets and they're attached to the wall. So the base would be cobblestone and then board and batten up, you know. That, but again, I want to see, I have ideas of what I would do. I'm not them. This is their project. They need to put together, here's what we're looking at from a architectural standpoint. So.
It sort of looked like a bunker, one thing I saw.
Yeah, so the comment from the audience was that it sort of looks like a bunker. That's because right now it's what's called a massing model, which basically just, it's literally, I won't say a cube because it's not equal on all sides, but you know, it's just a block. That doesn't give people a good feel for what this will actually look like. Put it this way, I wouldn't want to see a monolithic black structure behind my house either, right? Now, again, if it looked like the ones across the street, or it doesn't have to look like those, but my point is if it was historically consistent, now it's not necessarily as much of an issue, right?
No, I think if they built it like they would be put behind their own house, I think that.
Could we get those comments on the microphone?
I know.
If they would built it like they were building it behind their own house,
Right.
that would be fine. I don't
Right.
see a problem with that, but they have to build it conducive with the area.
I agree. I will say this particular developer has been very good with the town in the past and being very good in terms of building nice looking stuff consistent with the neighborhood. And in fact, sometimes if the neighborhood's a little run down, he will improve and lift the neighborhood with this stuff. But again, we can't basically approve it based off of he's a good guy. We have to see what he's actually proposing and approve or deny the actual application. So that goes back to why, because it was just a black massing model, I said, we really need more.
That's why we're counting on you people to take care of the situation
We
for
will.
all of us.
We
Thank you.
appreciate that and we understand our the responsibility we have to serving you. Thank you. Anything else online, Becky?
Nothing else online.
Anything else from the board?
Nope, I just,
Oh, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. Kevin just raised his hand. Sorry. Just in the nick of time, Kevin.
Yes, Supervisor Schultz, you mentioned putting a cupola on the Monroe Academy building. What you're referring to, Monroe Academy building was in East Hamlet where the Speedway gas station and car wash are now was burned to the ground by arson in 1974. You're referring to the Webb building on Erie Station Road where the old transportation center, the old town hall?
I was referring to the cupola on the Monroe Academy in the East Hamlet. There were actually two different ones because at one point they took the top stories were starting to collapse and they took the top story in the old cupola off. They shortened it to, I think, 3 stories from 4, and they put a new cupola on top of that. But
Okay.
When you look at those old pictures in the
Henrietta Heritage.
right, so these were I was looking at them in the bicentennial celebration book that town historian Tina Thompson put together. It's a really distinctive looking cupola. Both of them are actually. I'd be happy with either one of them. Again, I don't know that they're going to do that. It's just, I love that type of architecture. That's
Yes, actually, well, a slight correction, the Monroe Academy was shortened to from 3 stories to 2 stories.
okay.
And now would they put one of these 2 cupolas on this industrial building that they're proposing?
They haven't proposed it. I just, when they were looking at the images, I sent them the 2 pictures of the Monroe Academy. I sent them a whole bunch of industrial buildings from the time period. I also sent them the 2 pictures from the Monroe Academy saying, I personally, not me as town supervisor, me as town resident, I personally love those cupolas. And I would love to see a look like that. I don't know if others feel the same. But like I said, that's something that, well, I do know one person who feels the same. Gary Goodrich said, oh, that would be awesome if they could do it. I'm pretty sure it was Gary who said that. At least one.
Yes, I would, that'd be nice too, provided it wouldn't clash against a cookie cutter industrial building.
No, the rest of the facade would have to be consistent. I agree. Okay.
Yes, and take kind of particular note that the old Greece Town Hall when it was demolished, 1921 Greece Town Hall when it was demolished, that they did say the cupola there, and it's in the yard of their historical society's house where the first county county manager lived.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Hearing none, then again, I will close this session of the public hearing. However, we will advertise when the public hearing commences once we have the updated information from the applicant. So that concludes our public hearings. Can I get my first resolution?
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have Resolution 6-68, 2021, to authorize bills payable for today, March 24th, 2021.
Seconded.
Discussion. Anything online? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 6-69, 2021, to issue a positive declaration and call for a public hearing for the draft supplement generic environmental impact statement for incentive zoning and solar regulation.
Second.
So for those unfamiliar with the environmental impact statement process. It begins with a positive declaration. Basically, you do the initial analysis and say that the impact, the potential impact is significant, does not have, still has remaining unmitigated potential impacts. In this particular case, New York state law dictates that any changes to your zoning code require you to pause deck and go to an environmental impact statement.
When we're dealing with incentive zoning. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're right, not just zoning, it's incentive zoning. So, again, we've been working on this for a while. It kind of lost a little steam during the pandemic. We got busy doing other stuff, but it's back. So there will be, we'll call for the public hearing. We will present have a detailed presentation on what's involved. It'll basically start in public comment period. We will then take that public comment period, fold that in to create the final supplemental GEIS, present that, and if that's finally approved, then and only then can you actually adopt the law. The reason it's a supplemental GEIS is because this was actually originally part of our update to the comprehensive land use plan, but because these two, so with the incentive zoning, there's a lot of potential for abuse, so we wanted to spend a lot of additional time crafting this in such a way as to try to minimize that potential for abuse. Because of that, and because of the fact during the comprehensive land use update, there was a housing moratorium in place that had already been extended multiple times, and it was unfair to extend it a further time. We decided to punt, and we said we would do it as a supplement to the comp plan and to the environmental impact statement associated with it. The reason we kicked off the solar is at the time we were doing this, the solar laws were changing in New York State. So we didn't want to put in a bunch of solar laws that were immediately out of date. So we decided, again, since we were already going to have to do a supplemental for the solar, or excuse me, for the incentive zoning, we decided to also put the solar on there as well. So again, this is when it's all done and you go and grab in the future, download that, the comprehensive land use plan and its associated environmental impact, you'll see these as a supplement to that. They're meant to be associated with that. Because again, we did a whole lot of work on this already, but these two required additional workload that we didn't want to rush them, get them in place and have them be, not be as good as they could be if we took the time to go through it thoroughly.
True.
Questions? Anything online? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have Resolution 6-70, 2021, to authorize the supervisors to execute a proposal from DDS Engineering LLP to do a field topographical survey for Children Road Drainage Project.
Second. So for those unfamiliar with this area, for whatever reason, when they graded the area just north of here, there's the neighborhood's very flat, except there's one area that's a little bit below grade of everything else. And during heavy rains, to where the water doesn't all make it into the storm system, and it runs out into the streets. For those who aren't aware, streets are designed to be overflow for drainage systems. The problem is it flows down to this spot in Chiltern and it starts to build up. There is an existing drain pipe that drains that area. The problem is during those same heavy rain, the outlet of that pipe is into the creek. And if the creek rises to where the outlet is below water, then it slows down this rate at which it can drain. So we applied for a community development block grant to add a second drain pipe so that hopefully we can stay ahead. I don't think we'll ever stay ahead of, the 50 or 100-year storms, but if we can stay ahead of the 5 and 10-year storms, that would be great, because it makes this portion of Chiltern unpassable. And there's, I think, roughly 3 houses that then essentially, they need an amphibious vehicle to get into their driveways.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking to do. Obviously, the first step is to get a topographical survey. And so we went out to bid, and the winning engineer was DDS.
Did we get that grant money? Should we apply?
We did get approved. We don't have the money because we haven't spent anything yet. But yes, we did get approved for the community development block grant. Our town engineer has had a very good success record in terms of getting approval for his community development block grant. So hats off to Chris and his team.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, and both, I stole one of his team members, but Craig still helps out with Chris on that stuff too. So whether Chris will admit it, Craig's still really part of his team.
This is Chris Martin, Director of Engineering and Planning. I would absolutely like to say Craig is a valuable member of our team. But we did get a grant for that, and it's approximately $125,000, which is fairly high for the community development block grants. But a lot of that was due to COVID as well.
Outstanding. Great job.
Any other questions, comments? Anything from the crowd or from online? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford. Aye. Councilmember Safranek. Aye. Councilmember Bolsner. Aye. Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 6-71, 2021 to authorize the advertisement of bids for the cul-de-sac and pump station mowing services.
Second.
So again, we normally have an ability to extend, but you can only do that so many times. The contract's now up, so it's back out to bid.
I don't remember who had this contract.
I don't remember either.
I remember from the Bills, Michael something. I didn't think.
I
Yeah.
don't know, there's a couple of them out there. I think Hosmer had something he does for us too. I can't remember.
See the name right here.
Yep.
I just can't pull it out.
Any questions, comments? Anything from the public? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford. Aye. Councilmember Safranek.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner. Aye. Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have resolution 6-72, 2021 to declare an item surplus material from the Henrietta Recreation Department.
Second.
Any discussion? Pam, if you're listening, one of the things to take a look at is, depending on that role, we might want to take a look at to whether those would work as tee boxes for any of the disc golf facilities in town, if we're not doing anything else with the artificial turf.
Steve, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Yeah, so we did talk about whether it could be repurposed for anything. It's just sitting in the cave because it's already been replaced. But I can mention that again. Maybe there's pieces of it, sides of it, but it's pretty beat.
Okay,
but we will look into it.
I would reach out to Mike Clock in the Buildings and Grounds.
Okay, I will do that.
Thank you.
He can take a look at it, unroll it if he needs to.
It may not be usable, but it's at least worth checking.
Sure.
Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have Resolution 6-73, 2021, to call for a public hearing to consider designating 6400 West Henrietta Road a historic site.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Anything online? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Oh, Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 6-74, 2021, to authorize disposition of obsolete town records per LGS-1 schedule.
Second.
Any discussion? Anything from the public? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford. Councilmember Safranek.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner. Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Fellow board members, I have resolution 6-75, 2021. Whereas William and Sandra Kelly have donated $50 to the Henrietta Public Library in memory of James Scanardi. And whereas a check in the amount of $50 has been received by the library director, therefore be it resolved that the Henrietta Town Board acknowledges the donation and thanks William and Sandra Kelly for the generosity.
Second. Discussion?
I think that's a lovely way to honor the memory of a loved one.
Yes, it is.
Agreed. Any further comment? Anything from the public? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 6-76, 2021. Whereas the Night Frost Neighbors Memorial has donated $865 to the Henrietta Public Library in memory of Jim Scarnati, our friend and neighbor, and whereas checks were received totaling $865 by the library director for the following: the Angadi family, 23 Night Frost Lane; the Cavitasi family, 44 Night Frost Lane; the Clapper family, 3 Night Frost Lane; the Dietrich family, 80 Night Frost Lane; the Falke family, 31 Night Frost Lane. Sorry to the interpreters. The Fallon family, 64 Night Frost Lane. The Gartland family, 40 Night Frost Lane. The Gray family, 12 Night Frost Lane. The Hartman family, 76 Night Frost Lane. The Heinz family, 71 Night Frost Lane. The Herring family, 88 Night Frost Lane. The Jacobs family, 16 Night Frost Lane. The Pateris family, 84 Night Frost Lane. The Ryan family, 87 Night Frost Lane. The I have no idea how to pronounce this one. Sabzihi, sorry for butchering your name, / the Cyan family, 72 Night Frost Lane. The Zabo Sedita family, 56 Night Frost Lane. The Sullivan family, 24 Night Frost Lane. The Toledo family, 27 Night Frost Lane. Therefore, be it resolved that the Henrietta Town Board acknowledges this donation and thanks the Night Frost Neighbors Memorial for their generosity.
Second.
I apparently upset the town clerks and they gave me this resolution to read.
I thought you asked for it.
With no phonetic spellings or for the names.
That's very nice of that whole neighborhood.
It was
It
very
is.
nice of this whole
Beautiful.
neighborhood.
It's a wonderful way to remember somebody that's.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Any comments online? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have Resolution 6-77, 2021, to appoint one group as broker of record for the commercial properties and authorize the supervisor or director of finance to accept the broker's recommendation and sign the necessary contracts or policies.
Second.
So the one group record runs essentially from April through March, so that's why this is up now. Any questions, comments, anything from the public? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford. Councilmember Safranik.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have Resolution 6-78, 2021, to hire personnel.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Anything from the public? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner, Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 6-79, 2021, to accept seeker determination and issue negative declaration for the Marketplace Mall mixed-use development, including senior housing at 3400 West Henrietta Road and various properties on Miracle Mile Drive.
Second.
Discussion. So again, this is, was discussed at this meeting as well as at a previous public hearing. When you look at from the impacts, there's really minimal impacts because the site can handle so much traffic. So, and the other thing, from a impervious surface, there's actually going to be less impervious surface when the project's done because they're removing some of the parking lot and putting in grass. So, and everywhere else the building is and parking lot's going is parking lot today. So, any comments online from the public? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner. Aye. Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz, fellow board members, I have Resolution 6-80, 2021, to approve special use permit number 2021-018 for the Marketplace Mall mixed-use development area submitted by the Marketplace to allow a mixed-use development.
Second. Any discussion? I'm just looking through if there's anything of note that I see in the thing, not that I see. So I'll just read the numbers. So basically, what we did is we took the ranges where they're at, and I don't remember if you guys remember this discussion, because again, it started a while ago. We basically said that for this particular project, the range, that as long as they do the development within the following ranges, it shall be generally deemed to be materially consistent. So industrial is between 7.5% to 17.5%. Residential is between 10 and 20%. Commercial is between 55 and 70%, and civic is between 5 and 10%. That allows, as different things come in, it allows them to adapt to what tenants are out there and potentially available. But by essentially, with some of the stuff, I won't say it's pre-approved because it depends on whether the use requires a special use permit or whatever. But if it's an allowed use, and it fits within that mixed-use development, they can quickly get in place, which often is very important for landing key tenants. So, one of the things we hear more often than anything else is when a new project goes in, it's why didn't you use an existing building, right? So the ability to reuse the existing mall, to reuse some of the existing outbuildings. In this case, for the apartment, it's the existing site that was the General Cinemas Theater.
Right.
Yes, the cinema's been knocked down for a long time, but the parking lot's been sitting there empty for a long time. So it's great to see it with additional use coming forward. So, again, when we were putting in these, the mixed use development areas, this revitalization area, we were specifically looking at the mall and Southtown Plaza and the plazas around there because the nature of retail has changed.
Yep.
So we need to move with the times or we're going to end up with an empty husk in the middle of our town. Any further comment, questions? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner. Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have Resolution 6-81, 2021 to approve special use permit number 2021-009 to allow the construction of senior housing at the Marketplace Mall submitted by Rochester Cornerstone Group as a part of the Marketplace Mall mixed-use development.
Second.
So as Don noted previously, we're approving it's senior housing. It's not just open multifamily housing. The other place we actually have that in our code is in the rural residential. We allow senior housing, but we do not allow normal apartments. So that there are two locations where we have that that type of housing. I was just double checking, and this does have that it was meant to include housing for persons 55 and older, consistent with the applicant. I will note in the discussion, that obviously following federal laws, if there is an applicant who is under 55, who meets all the requirements of that law, they will be allowed to live there. But again, it's typically, if I remember correctly, you said in some of the other developments, it's like one or two, it's single digits where you see that happening. It's not like the senior development gets overrun by people outside the age group. Any other questions, comments? Anything from the public? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford. Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner. Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. So congratulations, you got approval. Obviously, we'll continue to work on the pilot. As I mentioned, I reached out to Comida. We'll see what they have to say. That would probably be the most direct route because they have the authority to do the lease back. But we'll see what they have to say. We're also, it's not necessarily 100% closed because if you actually read the law in New York State that creates that pilot, it actually doesn't mention ownership. But again, from the director of real property, there's no way for the town to create that pilot if ownership isn't a factor. So like I said, hopefully they can do it under Comida. We will see. I did receive word back from Anna Liss, the director. She brought the attorney in, they're reviewing it. And we're going to set up a meeting to have a discussion as to what, we can and can't do. So we'll keep you in touch. And then if we're the one authorizing, obviously the resolution will be back here. If it's Comita who's authorizing it, then the decision will be made at the Comita board. Okay? And thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations on much needed project in town, I think.
Yeah. You
Thank
too. Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow board members, I have Resolution 6-82, 2021, to accept seeker determination and issue a negative declaration for the Lehigh mixed-use development at the corner of East River Road and Lehigh Station Road.
Second.
Any discussion? Any further comments? I know you had wanted to wait till this meeting to look it over. I assume you've had the chance to do that, Rob?
Yes,
Okay.
a lot of construction that'll be
There
going on.
is.
I know, and the amount of traffic being added.
The good news is when you look at these, they are a lot lower density than your traditional pack everything in their industrial development.
Mhm.
So, but, again, that corridor does have issues, which is why they're being assessed the seeker mitigation fees so the county is supposed to start that process very soon if they haven't started already in terms of the starting to put the improvements together. So hopefully that will provide some relief for that corridor, although during COVID it hasn't been as bad.
Right.
Anything from the public? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner, Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I have Resolution 6-83, 2021, to approve special use permit number 2021-017 for the Lehigh mixed-use development submitted by Commercial Street Partners to allow the construction of a mixed-use development.
Seconded.
So a couple things I'll note. It does note that they will be putting $124,800 towards the East River Road corridor seeker mitigation. It also notes that as they submit for approval any of the industrial development on the south parcel, that they'll be owing additional seeker mitigation corridor, the fees for the corridor. They have also agreed to carry our East River Road sidewalk from where we were going to end it, which is at essentially around what's that?
Fairwood?
Fairwood, thank you. Fairwood Drive. They're going to bring it out onto their property and bring it up and around, which is great because on the hill, the wetlands and terrain make it such that we wouldn't have been able to have the sidewalk along the edge of the road. So they're going to bring it around, and then later in phase 2, they've even offered to continue it all the way down to where the southern exit meets East River Road. So it'll provide a lot of great additional walking and cycling capability, and then their own civic space within their plan adds additional loops off of that. So there'll be a lot of good, walking and riding loop capability in that regards.
That's great. As a kid, I lived down in Fairwood, like for 3 years down there. And what a great memory I had about the ponds and the clubhouse and, the Genesee River where my mom told me never to go, but we went anyway. And just to see, all the development that's come through this area over that 50 years is amazing. So yes, it's really good to see that we're gonna have, some complete streets around this area.
Any other comments? Since I did the last one, I'll mention that the ranges for this one were 47.5% to 57.5% industrial, residential between 30 and 40%, and civic between 10 and 20%. Anything from the public? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner, Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 6-84, 2021, to approve special use permit number 2020-029 for the Lehigh mixed-use development submitted by Commercial Street Properties to allow the construction of multifamily housing.
Second, and that's Commercial Street Partners.
Commercial Street Partners, what did I say, properties?
Yep.
I'm sorry, Commercial
Okay.
Street Partners.
So again, just like the last one, this is the
Yeah.
approval of the multifamily within the district. Any further comments? Anything from the public? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner, Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
That's you, Rob.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution 6-85, 2021 to adopt local law number 2 of 2021 to amend the Henrietta Town Code to revise permitted and prohibited uses in industrial districts.
Second. So again, as per our discussion during the public hearing, the plan is we'll put these changes in and we'll start efforts to working on what we're going to do with regards to car rentals, potentially further limiting those, because as I think about it too, you're not just going to want to do that for industrial. You'll actually want to do that for commercial as well. Otherwise, they could in theory they wouldn't need the higher standards of the special use permit in the commercial districts and or the planned commercial district. So again, none of this makes it any easier to put in a sorry, my brain's fried. Car rental, thank you. But these do bring in some other important corrections.
Right.
And so then, like I said, we'll start the project and we'll go from there.
Yep.
Any other comments, questions? Anything from the public? Hearing none, mercifully call the last roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner, Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. That concludes our resolutions.
55 minutes late from our steak dinner.
Yeah, those were close. I'd actually already mentioned, I had her put on the note because I knew my brain would be fried, that the pilot agreement was removed from consideration because of the issues with it. Do we have any committee or miscellaneous reports? Please keep them brief.
Yeah, mine is going to be really quick. Henrietta Public Library, as of March 15th, they did start extended hours. They're still doing curbside pickup. And in answer to Mr. Stafford's question that he asked me, no, the meeting rooms are not open. Adrian said it's not ready to be open. And Historical Site Committee, we had somebody today that wants to get their home deemed historical. So if you have a historical home, certainly look into it. There's some great benefits. That's it. I'm done.
I've got nothing.
Like,
Well, I have a few things, so try to make it quick. The
Always
rec department is currently accepting applications for summer camp counselors and youth volunteers. You have to be available on Monday through Friday, July 6th through August 13th, and you can apply online. And the deadline to apply is April 30th. Registration is now open for the spring session of preschool playgroup, gymnastics, and adult softball. The recreation center will be closed Easter Sunday, April 4th. Events coming up. We got the food link distribution is scheduled for April 8th, 10 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. at Veterans Park. You always mention that you can go online and food link there and find it. Scott's donor drive is scheduled for Saturday, May 1st at the Rec Center, 9 to 2. The event is for organ donation sign up as well as a Red Cross blood drive to register. Oops, I just lost it here. Sorry about that. To register, go to redcrossblood.org. Registration for the RH Kicking Hunger run is now open. The Memorial Day Parade will be a reverse event on May 23rd at Veterans Memorial Park. More details to follow. At the Senior Center is doing car side bingo on Mondays at 10:30, beginning March 29th. They will purchase new FM transmitter and a mixer to broadcast to cars. And senior bocce teams are being formed now. Men and women 60 years of older are eligible to join. League is on Friday afternoons in June. I'm sorry, from June till September. This is a free program, and call the 334-4030 for more information. That's all I got.
great. Got anything, Rob?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay, then at 8:56, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
Sorry, Steve.
Hearing no objection, meeting adjourned.